Today on the line, we have Limahl Mills, who is no stranger to the Exodus Collective because we chatted with him not that long ago. But today we brought him back because St. Kitts and Nevis continues to be one of the most popular destinations that people want to understand how to relocate to, but also more generally, how to afford your move abroad, specifically to the Caribbean, is a question that I'm being inundated with requests for. So as Limahl works or runs a finance organization, I thought he'd be a fantastic person to kind of give you some tips and tricks as to how to really be able to save and to budget for making your move. But before we go into that, and we have some really exciting news about a series that we're going to be launching that will take you step by step through everything that you need to do if you're serious about making that move and want to be able to afford it and make it sustainable. But before we do that, let's catch up. Limahl, how's it been? It's been like, what, almost 2 months that you've been in St. Kitts?
Yeah, nearly 2 months. It's actually really flying by. Like when you said that before, I was like, wow, yeah, it's actually week 7, I believe. So yeah, it's been cool. It's been crazy.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's amazing what can happen in the space of a few months. So for me, it's like, yeah, week 4 or 5 of being in Grenada. So it's nice to be speaking to you from somewhere warm and t-shirts. It's yeah, it's a big shift. So what have you been up to? How have the first 7 weeks been?
It's been challenging at some points, not gonna lie. More so I've been doing a lot of administrative stuff which usually the boring things I don't like to do, but anytime you relocate, you've got to literally plug into this new economy. So it's, getting a place sorted out, office equipment, like my chair, I'm trying to get that, still a few more weeks to go, setting up the company and, just all of these things that play a part of moving to somewhere new. So really just been setting things up, just trying to plug in really. But yeah, it's been some challenges, but good. We're getting there.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm so glad to hear someone else say that, because like a lot of my friends, like I haven't been in touch. I haven't been on Instagram that much or YouTube, and people think I've just been sitting on the beach. I'm like, I wish, like the logistics. Yeah. Like, yeah, there's everything until you get there. But once you arrive, like there's so much to be done. Like for me, it's been clearing barrels, clearing crates, visiting brokers, trying to get Wi-Fi sorted out, a broken laptop, the unexpected as well. The unexpected that can just pop up and derail you is, yeah, it's a lot, but still, where else to be but here?
Exactly. And I think, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, can you tell me about some of the challenges? Because I think it's important to be aware that, yeah, it's not always going to be plain sailing. What are some of the things that popped up that you weren't expecting that have slowed your progress a bit?
Yeah, I guess I would say, ironically, in the financial sector, I did have some prior knowledge to how things go on here, but yeah, just getting set up, it's different, even if you're a citizen, but it's different if you haven't lived in that place all your life, because you are effectively plugging into a new system entirely. So just getting my, bank account set up, for the company and myself has been tricky, because I'm not coming here as an employee. I'm coming here as an entrepreneur and business owner. So there's a different mechanics to it, which I thought, in all honesty, would be slightly easier. But it's a different system. So I'm trying to overcome that at the moment. So that's been one challenge, I would say. Logistically as well, just getting certain things here. Like I've got so much clothes that, well, not so much, I should say. I needed some tropic wear, let's say. I didn't get all the right clothing correct. And I'm still waiting for it. That's been like maybe 5-6 weeks now. And just because of the delays of everything, I still haven't got those clothes yet. So I'm like sweating, and, literally. So logistically getting things from, Europe to the Caribbean is difficult. So that's another big challenge. My computer chair, for one, just can't get it. So I have to get rid of that one and get another one from America, and then bring that from America to here. So, and that's an integral part of my day to day. So
yeah, it's all those simple little things, like not just being able to click on Amazon and it arrives the same day, or pop to IKEA and you're done. Yeah, it's completely different. But I think one of the things that I'm finding is that the weather, the fact that it's just so damn hot, means you just have to chill out. Like you can't stress about it, because you will literally either just be like a pool of sweat or just completely wound up. You just, okay, this
Yeah,
has happened, take it in my stride. What's the solution, or how do I kind of work with where things are? So yeah, definitely an
exactly,
adjustment.
exactly.
Yeah. So
100%.
as I was saying before, aside from the logistics, one of the things that folks really have a lot of fear and curiosity about is like, how on earth can people afford to live in the Caribbean if they're not retired, if they're not multimillionaires? Because the Caribbean is far from cheap. But with a bit of strategy, with a bit of forward planning, there are definitely ways in which people can make it affordable. So we've been talking about running a series that talks people through the steps of how to relocate. And one of the reasons why I think you're the perfect person to speak to is because of your app, Fortese, which is all about saving. Because ultimately, yeah, it would be nice if we could just buy a ticket at the drop of a hat, but having some savings behind you really is a useful tip to kind of just de-risk that move, to know that you do have something to fall back on and that you have thought through the financials. That are going to come into play. We'll talk through what some of the steps are going to be, but tell me a little bit more about your approach to saving and how you think Fortese can really come into play when it comes to factoring in the financials and saving for your move to the Caribbean.
Yeah, most definitely. I guess with Fortese, specifically, the whole premise, as you said, is to save money over a long period of time. And I believe that if anybody has like a running head start of their relocation to the Caribbean, then having a good savings plan is going to be beneficial. Because as I said on our interview, information and research is one part of it, 100%, absolutely. But the monetary side, it's knowing, what the true value of the money or the currency is in the location you're going to, what's the buying power of that, that dollar or that pound to dollar, Eastern Caribbean, for example. You've really got need to get a good idea of that. And I believe, once you save the adequate amounts and you've at least got a good head start, as I said, then you can excel once you get onto the ground. But making sure that financial planning is done first is definitely important.
Right. And so do folks ever ask you, like, how much should I save? Is that a question that you get asked? Because I know I get asked it a lot.
Sometimes.
Do you think there's a magic? Do you have a formula? What's your answer? I'm curious. I'll tell you what mine is, but I want to know yours first.
Well, I would say, first of all, it really depends on the lifestyle that you're wanting to live. Some people, they may need, certain things like a 5-bedroom or super, super fast Wi-Fi vehicle and all of these things, but it really depends on your situation. So I say, look, think of your own living situation where you're at. Just think about those expenses that you have now. Then think about, okay, am I going to have to carry on some of those expenses in my new place? Or am I going to be able to get rid of some? Or are you going to incur some new charges? You really got to think, what's your expenses like on a month-to-month basis? That's how I would look at it. So it does depend on the individual. But if you're prepared to, rough it out a little bit at first to find the thing that you're really looking for, then you can really win that way. But it depends on the individual.
Yeah, I think that's a really honest answer. And I think also another level is like, understand what you are like with finances. So quite often I hear a figure of like, I need 50,000 in the bank, or I need like 100,000. And I guess if you're someone who consistently needs to know that you've got a good wedge in the bank and that's what you need in order to feel safe, absolutely. Your move abroad isn't the time to throw caution to the wind and just make it up as you go along. But also for me, like I rarely have a significant amount of savings. So if I took the approach of, okay, I'm not going to move until I've got like 75K in the bank, I would never move. I'd have to wait until I retire. So like, be realistic about what your relationship with money is like, what amount of risk you're willing to take, understand what backup options you have as well. I think that's also a useful thing to factor in so that you can be realistic about how you're going to approach your relocation. So does that sound
Definitely
like good advice? Would you?
Yeah, 100%. You hit the nail on the head when you talked about risk, because everybody's risk tolerance is different.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more open to taking risks regularly, where some people are very cautious. They think of risk as like this fearful thing. They just won't do it. So it does depend. And I guess moving to the Caribbean from England, for example, you have to have an element of risk taking inside of you, I believe, because it's a completely new environment. So definitely, I think that is good advice. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let's shoot through. We're going to be running this series over 6 episodes. There'll be live, so those of you tuning in will have a chance to ask Limahl and I questions after we talk through some of the key elements. But let's quickly whiz through what the episodes will be over this week of programming, which starts from this coming Monday. So the first episode is on location. And for me, I think that's an important one to start with, because quite often, I mean, for those of us who are from the diaspora, who have access to a particular passport, that narrows it down somewhat. But quite often people are like, I want to move to the Caribbean. I'm like, the Caribbean is a big place. Each island varies a lot. And also the cost of living varies quite a lot. So really understanding like what your desired lifestyle is, I think that will help you to narrow down which destination is going to be best for you. So if you're all about like chilled out living, low cost of life, being close to the jungle and the water, Belize will be amazing for you. But somewhere like Trinidad, being based in the capital, probably won't be a good fit. So really taking the time to do your research as to what each location offers and how affordable it is, I think is a really useful starting point, because you might have some assumptions in your head, but when you actually look at the numbers, you realize that actually it's a little bit different. Did you, Limahl, did you ever consider a destination other than St. Kitts?
In all honesty, I didn't. The main reason is I'm a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, of the Federation, as they call it. So yeah, there was no real other options. Just because of my family connections, it was always going to be here, and Nevis specifically, which is where I'm at now. So yeah, St. Kitts and Nevis was top
of the list. I like that. I like your loyalty. And one of the things that we'll also talk through is the fact that as the possessor of a CARICOM passport, that allows you to work in certain other states. So if you wanted to set up a business elsewhere, there's a visa that you can apply for as a self-employed person, and there's certain conditions as well. So in a sense, just because say you have a Jamaican passport doesn't mean that you can only be based in Jamaica. There are other options as well. And for us small island people, being members of the OECS, there's even more flexibility. So if I wanted to set up in St. Kitts or St. Lucia, there's even more freedom to be able to move. So I think that's something that folks who are able to apply through citizenship by descent might want to look into, just so that they're aware of the options that are there. And so week 2 is money. So you talk to me, can you talk us through what the money episode might look like?
Yeah, sure. So as I was saying earlier, I think getting a true understanding of the spending power of the currency that you're going to be taking is definitely key, because your pound or your US dollar will get you a certain amount of things per week, per month, per year. But once you actually move, yes, the currency could actually be in your favor. But when you actually spend time in a place, there's a different vibe when you actually start spending the money or the currency of the place where you're at. You start to see, oh, wait a minute, I felt like I should get more for my money, but it's actually turning out that, this item or these items are costing me a lot more than what I expected. And then another thing is that, the money itself, it's actually a different type of value structure. So again, £100 isn't the same as 100 EC. It doesn't have the same weight. So getting a true understanding of that, I think we'll definitely discuss, because there's some things that could catch some people out, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. This morning I went to buy coffee. A jar of Nescafe was going to be about £12. Can you imagine? £12? Yeah. So things like that, I think it's good to know, and especially understanding your relocation costs. So like travel insurance, visas, shipping, packing. You think about what the cost is going to be when you're there, but actually the cost of getting there is also far from insignificant, and factoring that in is, I don't think I paid enough attention to that, and the cost kind of just rocketed it up without me really having a budget. So I think if you're more strategic about, okay, what's my packing going to cost? What are the shipping costs? What are the taxes? So that you know what you're working with and what your limit is. I think that can be a way to save money, or just be a bit smarter with your spending. So yeah, money matters when it comes to costs are really important, but also money matters when it comes to income, because, understanding how you're going to earn money. And I think you and I are both entrepreneurs. So for folks who are like, how do I find a job in the Caribbean? We're probably not the best people to speak to. But understanding what support is out there for entrepreneurs, especially within the Caribbean region, there's funding available. So understanding what you need to do to be able to apply for that. And also looking at remote work options, I think is something that we're definitely going to look at. And then also the following week, we'll be looking at crafting like a relocation roadmap. So understanding what the timeline is going to be for your move. And this one I'm really excited about because it's one that doesn't come up very often, but you really wanted to talk to us about risk, how to like de-risk the move. Can you talk us through like your strategy for that? Because I think this is really, really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Again, it's not the most, I would say, glamorous topic, but it's one of those things that you really do have to consider and think about, because each individual, as I said, will have a different tolerance towards risk. So some people, for example, like myself, I'm a risk taker. I will probably do most things that most average person just would never do in their life, but that's the way how I am shaped. But when you think about your move, you've got to really assess like, okay, if I actually leave my apartment or house or sell my house, if I leave my job, if I leave or spend my savings or do all of these things, give up certain things, you've got to weigh up that risk and see, okay, what's the return going to be like when I actually move? How much am I going to risk to get that reward? And I think having a good, solid understanding of what you're giving up for what you're going to gain, it'll give you some kind of peace of mind, for your actual move. Because, it's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, it's just a walk in the park, just hop and move to the Caribbean. No, it's it's not easy at all. But if you manage your risk correctly, you can get it right and you'll feel at peace with your decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've identified some really like niche areas to be aware of, like understanding the PCR tests that are involved, the way in which travel restrictions change, understanding what alternative travel routes might look like, just kind of being able to spot the trends that are happening, the ways in which local governments are responding to the COVID situation, really is a way to kind of just to have a plan A and to have plan B. If you're serious about moving, I think that's really, really smart, because no one wants to end up like I did, where it takes 18 months to make a move. That's not an option. Yeah, definitely. And then the final week, which is also super exciting, is understanding how to make your move sustainable, like planning for the long-term gain. Because I think in a way I was kind of thinking, I mean, this might be an example that goes over your head, but it's a little like being pregnant or having a child. So everyone's really focused on the pregnancy and the birth, but actually all of the work is what comes afterwards. And I think the fact that you've identified working towards the long term as important is really interesting. So can you talk us through a little bit about the strategies that you would suggest for making your move sustainable?
Yeah, definitely. Again, I personally believe, I don't think it's an area that many people talk about just online anyway. Long-term thinking, long-term planning, because again, you have children yourself. Same, my fiance and our little family. It's like, we're thinking like 2,500, 200, 400 years in the future. Right. So it's not a thing of, oh, we just want to move to the Caribbean. It's like, what will that move do for the future generations? Right. And I believe if you've really started to think as far out as possible, as long term as possible, it'll make your decision-making process way easier, because you're thinking, okay, I'm not just doing this to better myself in next 2022. These moves that I'm doing in 2021 will benefit myself, my family, decades from now. Right? If you think like that, it will be a bit more of a walk in the park than it would be if you wasn't.
Yeah, no,
that's what absolutely. I would say to them.
Definitely. And I think it kind of gives you that certainty, that groundedness of like the greater purpose. And there's this thing of like thinking for 7 generations in advance that just makes the moves that you take so much wiser. So yeah, I'm really excited for that episode. So yeah, that's basically it. I think, as I say, if you're thinking about making a move, you'll have a lot of uncertainty, tuning into these live sessions that are going to run over the course of a week are really going to be like an unmissable resource for you. And absolutely making sure that you're there live so that you can ask questions and we can answer them is something that I'll definitely recommend. If you can't make it, the recordings will be available for download via the website, and there'll be a fee for that, but not too much, but it's really going to be quite useful. And we'll probably throw in some resources like sheets, cheat sheets, planners, just so that it's not information that you're watching for entertainment, it's actually stuff that you take action on to make your move a reality. So Limahl, yeah, thanks again for checking in, for chatting. I can't wait to talk with you live and to hear the questions from our viewers. Have you got any other parting words of wisdom or anything else you wanted to add?
Oh no, thanks again for having me on, and I am looking forward to it. I would say for anyone who taps into the live stream sessions, just come prepared to get some information that you can tangibly use for yourself in your own situation, because as I said, it's not an easy thing to do, uprooting yourself, but if you do the correct planning and you really put the work in, then you'll get there, right? It takes time, but you will get there. So just come with an open mind, ready to learn some new things, and yeah, let's enjoy and put the work in.
Fantastic.